Well, the Ottomans have made quite a mess in the Balkans, I'll give you that. But honestly, despite that, didn't they actually create one of the most diverse places in Europe? It's totally worth visiting, and today I will talk about Kosovo and Serbia. Hello Internet, welcome to Lex Universe. So this is kind of a conclusion to my trip to Serbia and to Kosovo. I will give you some roundup of all the information that you may find handy if you want to travel to these countries, and I will also give you some, well, basic information so that you know what is the difference between these two locations. Are they one country? Aren't they one country? Depends who you ask, everybody will tell you something else. We will touch on the subject in this video as well, and in general I will try to substitute for any printed tourist guide that you may need to buy. So let's go for it. Alright, if you look at the map, you will find that Serbia and Kosovo are located in the Balkans. Serbia borders Hungary to the north, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia and Montenegro to the west, North Macedonia to the south, and Bulgaria and Romania to the east. If we count Kosovo as part of Serbia, it also borders Albania. The Kosovo itself borders also Montenegro and North Macedonia, along with Serbia. They're both landlocked, so if you were searching for summer beach vacation, neither Kosovo or Serbia are a place for you. Now, before I get to the basic info about each of these two regions, we need to discuss what is Kosovo and what is Serbia. Basically, from the point of view of Serbia, Kosovo is just territory of their own country, and they consider it as such. They do not consider the declaration of Kosovar independence. In Kosovo, on the other hand, they have declared their independence in 2008, and almost half of the countries that are members of the United Nations have recognized Kosovo independence. So there are many international embassies in the country. So, well, is it a country? Isn't it a country? I will refer to it as a country. It doesn't really mean that I support it politically, and it really doesn't matter what I support. It's up to the people of Serbia and Kosovo to make arrangements about that. But why I'm saying this in this video is, even if you do not recognize Kosovo, but you still want to visit the region, you will have to accept that you will have to follow the Kosovo law, because they are in charge of the territory. Yeah, so you need to have the permission to enter Kosovo, which may be a visa, it may be some visa-free access, it really depends where you're from, but you need to follow their rules, not Serbian. So I will consider this such. And the following basic facts actually prove my point. The majority language in Serbia is Serbian, which is very similar to Croatian, Bosniak and Montenegrin, while in Kosovo the majority language is Albanian. Each of these two languages are also the minority language in the other territory, meaning there are some Albanian territories in Serbia and some Serbian territories in Kosovo. In Serbia they use the Serbian dinar as the currency, while Kosovo uses euro, but don't get it wrong, it's not part of the Eurozone, they just accepted it unilaterally. If you're traveling to Serbia, while this has changed quite a lot in the last years, they're starting to use Latin alphabet, but many writings are still in Cyrillic, so maybe it's a good idea to grab at least some basic knowledge of this writing system. It may help you a lot. In Kosovo, well, everything is written in Latin alphabet, but Albanian is just like a clusterfuck of a language, so you will not understand it anyway. They both use the C and E plug outlet and drive on the right side of the road. At least that is the same. Before I get to some specifics of each country, let's discuss how to get from Serbia to Kosovo and vice versa. It's actually quite straightforward. They do have some kind of relations between themselves. It is possible to cross the border, which is not always the case in these unrecognized or partially recognized countries. So if you're traveling from Belgrade to Pristina, you will arrive at the borders, or from the Kosovo side it's considered a border, from the Serbian side it's just a checkpoint on the road. You will have your travel documents checked by the Serbian police, and then you will move along to the Kosovo side. They will check your travel documents, passport. Then you will have to get out of your vehicle. It could be a car or even a bus, and you will have to go through customs. It's pretty much the same as on the airport. You will just run all of your bags through the X-ray machine, and then you are basically free to go. Just consider it may take some time. When I was there were almost not queues, but it still took some 40 minutes. If there are a lot of people waiting in the queue, then it may take a lot longer. The travel time from Belgrade to Pristina is some 5.5 hours, but really just consider it may take a lot longer. One really important thing about this, while you can cross the border from both sides, remember that if you entered Kosovo from Albanian or Montenegrin side, you cannot continue to Serbia. They will turn you back at the border, because from Serbian point of view you haven't entered their country in a legal way. Which then as a result brings me to the next point, and it's how to get to the country. I think one of the most common ways how to enter Serbia is to fly. There are 3 international airports: Belgrade, Niš and Novi Sad. Belgrade is the largest commercial airport in Serbia. It has many long distance connections, like to the Middle East and to Germany, and then with some transfers to the rest of the world. Niš and Novi Sad are basically just low budget and regional airports. They're very small, like we've arrived in Niš and just one gate, one security control, one passport control. No big thing. If you want to fly to Kosovo, there is one international airport in Pristina, but there are actually not so many long distance connections, but especially flights to Vienna, to Germany and to Istanbul connect Pristina with the rest of the world. So yeah, that might really be helpful if you're flying from somewhere else than Europe. Now your next possibility is to use train, and I already mentioned it in my video from Bosnia, and probably even before from Albania. Traveling by train in the Balkans is kind of a nightmare. It really takes a long time, but there are some long distance trains that go to Belgrade from Austria, Hungary, Slovenia, Croatia and so on, and also from some surrounding countries. But honestly, it's really slow. Even here in my notes I wrote SLOOOOOOW. Really, that's basically how you describe trains in the Balkans. And imagine then that you add the border crossing into the mix. You just spend several days on the train. But if trains are a thing, then totally go for it. It might be really fun. Or you can travel by bus. There are some long distance buses from Central Europe and also from the south. If you really want to book something in advance, your best bet would be probably Flixbus or Eurolines. One more thing about getting into the country is you are obliged to register yourself at the police station within the first 24 hours after you enter the country. And if you don't do this, you may be fined when you leave the country. If you are accommodated in a hotel, and most of the time I think even in Airbnb, you are good. It's obligatory for them to register you, so you will not have to do anything about it. But if you're accommodated in some private apartment or something, remember that you'll have to do this if you don't want to get fined. Now moving on, we are in the country, you have to get around. First of all, you can drive. If you drive there from Europe, well then you're just fine. If you want to rent a car, most of the rental car companies are located at the airports. They are actually quite expensive, considering you are in the Balkans. I think even we were checking on the prices for the rentals, and there was something like 5,000 euro deposit. That's insane. But if you are rich, go for it. But for the rest of us, we will have to use the public transportation. It's actually quite good, to be honest. I will start with the trains again because they suck. And they're very inefficient, very slow, very unreliable. However, there is a new train line from Belgrade to Novi Sad, which cuts the travel time significantly, and sometimes you'll be in Belgrade from Novi Sad quicker than from the outskirts of Belgrade in the center, so I'll consider that. Now, moving on to buses, I will start in Serbia again. If you want to find any connection in Serbia, go check out this webpage. You can search for the connections, and well, funny thing is that you don't even have to know Cyrillic to write it down, which is kind of cool. In some cases, you can even buy the bus ticket online, and then you will just have to print the ticket in most cases. Some of the operators do accept electronic tickets, but it's not the rule, it's more of an exception. When we are on the subject of buses, let me shortly mention the bus station in Belgrade. This may not be valid anymore in some time because they are building the new bus station, but if you are traveling right now or in the short future, there is one extremely weird thing at this station. I haven't seen it anywhere else in the world. If you're traveling from Belgrade anywhere, you will have to buy the so-called platform ticket, which means that's kind of a permission to enter the platforms where the buses depart from. There are two types. There is the platform card, or it's just like a paper ticket that you buy if you have an international connection. In this case, Kosovo is considered international connection. Kind of weird that people in Serbia consider it that, but that's just how it is. And if you are traveling internally within Serbia, you will just get like this token, and then you have to put it into the turnstile to allow you to enter the platforms. This may not be the case in the future, but right now this is kind of confusing, and it almost prevented us from leaving because we really had the last change of Serbian dinars, and we spent the last of it on the platform card. So leave some dinars if you're traveling from Belgrade by bus. Traveling in Kosovo is in some cases a little bit, I don't want to say more primitive, but I haven't found any online timetables for traveling in Kosovo. There are some of them, there is a bus network. Many of the smaller villages are served by these minibuses. You have seen it in almost every country in the Balkans I have been to, so well, you know what I'm talking about. Now, another possibility how to get around is by taxi. When you're traveling within the city or in short distances, you can either get a taxi on the street, or many of the taxi services have their own app where you can order the taxi. It will give you an approximate price for the ride, but it also happened to me that the driver just started the taxi meter, and we just paid what we physically drove. So the price doesn't have to be final, but it's, for me at least, it's more pleasant than just stopping somewhere on the streets. I just don't trust taxi drivers on the streets. In Kosovo, I haven't tried it, but from what I heard there, you cannot stop the taxi on the streets. You have to call to their line and order a taxi, and then they can pick you up. Now, let me shortly mention internet in the country. You can buy a prepaid SIM card on the airport. It's actually kind of funny. There are some tourist SIM cards that you can buy, probably on the Belgrade airport, but on the Niš airport there is just this one small tobacco shop with the lady that doesn't speak any English. So we just got a SIM card which didn't have any credit, so then we had to go to the web page and then add some money from our card and then order the services. It was all in Serbian, it was very funny. So, but I believe that if you arrive in Belgrade, there will be some tourist prepaid SIM cards that will be already activated and you won't have to do anything. I read somewhere that these SIM cards should work in the whole of West Balkans. They don't. So if you cross to Kosovo, unless you want to be without internet connection, you will need to buy another card. My personal favorite in Serbia is the company Srpski Telekom and the card called MTS. In Kosovo, the provider Vala seems to be the best with the best coverage, so maybe that will find. Maybe that will be helpful to someone. If you're already in Serbia or in Kosovo, you will probably get hungry. So, what are some of the most famous Serbian dishes? Well, almost everything is about the grill and meat. So, you can find cevapi, pleskavica or roštine, which is basically just a plate full of meat. You can get proja, which is like this corn bread with white cheese. Really interesting. Like everywhere in the Balkans, you will find burek almost everywhere. And in Kosovo, you can get ayran, which is kind of this drinkable yogurt, also very fun. When it comes to drinks, drinking is allowed from 18 years of age in both territories. If you are in Kosovo, the most favorite beer seems to be peja. In Serbia, that's probably Elen or Lav, and also I kind of liked Zajčarsko. We are in the Balkans, so one of the most typical drinks in the whole of, well, not only Serbia or Kosovo, but the whole of Balkans is rakia. Just like this spiritus. It's disgusting, but if you are for this kind of stuff, you may like it. And don't forget that if you cheer with somebody, you need to make eye contact, otherwise it's very rude. Now, as a conclusion, how to stay safe. I have a few points here. Both of the countries are generally very safe. Belgrade is actually considered one of the safest cities in Europe. Just one thing that kind of needs to be said, don't discuss politics with these people. It's a very touchy subject, especially in Serbia. Anything regarding Kosovo may bring you into trouble. Other than that, the criminality is quite low. There might be still some landmines from the Yugoslav war somewhere in the countryside or in the wilderness, but we'll just use common sense and you will not blow up. And just one last point, I talked about the beer that you can drink. Well, don't forget, you can drink tap water in both countries without any problems. You will probably not shit yourself. If you do, well, write me an angry comment down below. Yeah, and that's basically Serbia and Kosovo. I hope you found it interesting. If you have any more questions, just write them down in comments below. I will get to you. I will give you my best possible advice for anything. I spent some time there. I'm not an expert, never said I was, but I hope I will be able to help you. And if you like this video, please give me a like, subscribe to my channel, check out my other social media, and I will see you next time. Bye.